Hello everyone, this is Menz here playing the AMX M449 here on Serene Coast. Now, this match honestly was actually my first match in the AMX M449 after it got released, and I ended up acing it for the first match here. I do a little over 4,300 damage, and I deflect about 1,700 or so. Now, with this tank, what you're going to be seeing is essentially you have a ton of frontal armor, and if you ever see one of these things angled slightest bit, it starts making these little transition cheek sections extremely weak, and your sides are extremely weak as well. So essentially this is just point straight at the enemy, shoot away at them. You don't have a ton of DPM, but your gun, it does have a respectable amount of damage and DPM. It's just not great. But the penetration is good. You don't need too many premium shells, like other tier 8 premiums that might have less penetration. Now, one main drawback to this is basically all your armor is on the front turret and also the front hull. So getting shot elsewhere, or even getting penetrated through the front, since this does see 9s and 10s, the frontal armor is very effective at bouncing shots. However, against tier 9 and 10s, there's a decent chance, even with standard rounds, they're going to be able to go through you. But against tier 8s, this will provide, pretty good protection, unless they're throwing heat at you or premium shells. Now, I set up in a spot here to where, outside of people around me here, my frontal armor is pointing directly at the enemy, and there's only one SPG, so I always like to take chances. It's like if they're not aiming at me, then I'm fine. Once I see, this other AMX M4, I switch, my plan here. Leave those ONIs alone, which they were, pretty brave to go through like that. And our T-29 moving up like he did as well alone, not exactly the smartest decision. But with this tank, since there aren't that many SPGs here, I'm not playing in, good already cover, but more or less I like to play this not too close to enemies, because you can easily get flanked that way, and since your DPM isn't that great, you're at kind of a disadvantage getting closer up, unless you have, the HP and it's just like one-on-one, something like that. Now, the weak spot for the AMX M449 is essentially the commander's cupola. Like, I'm going to miss this guy a couple times here, I believe. But the whole front is, I think, minimum 230 millimeters effective armor. That's lower glacis, upper glacis, turret front. And it's just the commander's cupola that is extremely weak on this. So more or less, if you come across one of these and it's not angling, shoot right at that. You do, however, if you do have to hit somewhere on the front outside of the cupola, if you shoot towards the bottom of the upper glacis, typically that's the weakest part, because you're shooting down at it, unless you're extremely close, at which point you can shoot a little bit further up. If that makes any sense. But usually the lower glacis, just stay away from it unless the AMX is angled upwards on a hill. Now here I'm angling partially because the IS-6, we're kind of fighting for position here. But fortunately I'm able to get, cupola shot on the AMX M4. And this guy, he's not exactly angling right, which I kind of screwed up by IS-6's shot there. But so far it's working out well. That E2 kind of distracted them by flanking, and I'm more or less, I'm trying not to take damage here, but me angling wrong that way, I'm trying to get that other AMX out. That way we have an advantage. But taking that cupola shot there, that's primarily going to be where people aim at you, unless you're angled incorrectly and they're going to shoot the sides. So just wiggling around helps a lot, but it's still a massive weak spot. And since this is my first game, I just took another side shot there. It takes a couple matches to be able to remind yourself this thing does not promote angling whatsoever. Um, I'm gonna ram this guy, considering the AMX. You know, it's not exactly a light tank in any sense. Um, and again, I was not angled correctly there with that T20 or T34 actually zooming in there. At this point, we're a little bit ahead here, but I am a little bit concerned. You know, basically we have nobody at the base, and it's a kind of weird position for our team to be in, honestly. I'm more or less, you know, directly on to him, but uh, he still shot me, you know, pretty much right there, which I don't know if that's a premium round or not, because there is a chance for, you know, T34 is a very high amount of penetration for a tier 8. There's still a decent chance for, you know, shells like that to penetrate you. It's just the armor across the whole front is strong enough to give you a good chance of bouncing, but it does not make you immune, which is why I like to stay at, you know, semi mid range and not let people get too close. Now at this point, you know, we're down. It's really dicey. We're still ahead by a tank, but I can't go back to the base. This thing's pretty high up there, and luckily they get those tanks out, and it's just a T-32. But with the height, I was not going to chance it against the Jagdpanzer IV. So luckily for me, this guy doesn't know about the cupola, and or he's, you know, just missing against the cupola. It looks like he had just auto aimed at me, honestly. But it's nice being able to, you know, basically write off some tanks that have no chance of penning you outside of the cupola. Alright, so really at this point, yeah, that happens. I knew that was coming. Already, you know, pretty easy to finish me off there. But as far as the tanks go, like, or this tank goes, it's a very good tank. It can make a decent amount of credits because it doesn't need, you know, many, if any, premium rounds. Armor-wise, it can deflect a ton of shots if you're top tier like this. When you're versing a few 9s, you have to be a little bit more careful, primarily against the mediums and tank destroyers, because their penetration starts ramping up a lot. In tier 10s, basically I play it in groups. I try being there with a group to help them and supporting my main group, but overall I don't, you know, try to tank too many shots in this because your armor won't withstand tier 10s too well. You'll still get bounces if you can find like a little hill to hold down on, because they can still hit your cupola, but against your upper glacis that gets stronger. And just trying to stay on the IS-6. I didn't click there, it just moved me off. But this is a pretty good tank to buy. It does have its trade-offs, you know, really just having one play style with just frontal armor and, you know, a gun that's good but not overwhelmingly slated towards either DPM or high alpha. It's kind of middle ground, kind of like, you know, other French tanks, say like the FCM 50T, where the heavy tank, but it's kind of have a heavy medium gun on it. But so far, even though this was my first match, I've, you know, dozens of matches in this now, and it's been a little bit frustrating at times when you forget about angling. You just want to stay straight on most of the time because people penning you through those cheeks and the side armor and even your upper glacis, if you're, you know, not keeping yourself straight on, or if you're going over a hill and you negate your angle, essentially you're going to take a lot of ammo rack damage, much like the other newly released premium, the T26E5. This has a very weak ammo rack, and you're going to learn that quickly if you start taking shots outside of your frontal armor. Now, switching over to the end game screens here, we got the Mastery Badge First Class. After that, top amount of damage on my team and the other team as well, 4,300 damage. Pretty good amount of experience as well, 1,300 there. In the final screen, outside of the damage, I deflected a little over 1,700, only assisted with little, And I didn't have any personal reserves. I do have a premium account, of course, and I net it over 100,000 credits. While damage wise, this is a bit high for like a typical match in this. Typically, I slate in, I would say, anywhere from, I think, 2,000 to like 2,500 on, like a decent average game, I believe. Um, and in that case, you're gonna make, I would say about 70,000 net profit, maybe a pinch lower at the worst. And that's without using premium rounds because you really don't need them too much. Like I have some on there for tier 10 matches, but you're not gonna really use them much at all. But anyway, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this replay. Feel free to check out my website, wattguru.com, and also stop in here on YouTube for my live stream. I live stream at least 4 times a week. Otherwise, I'll see you around. Have a good day.